Wow. I don't know where that was going. It was
Where
like
was
a
that
spinning
going?
top. It was just like...
Don't know what happened. Power of the Dreadnought taking over.
That's it. That's it. How you doing, guys?
Hello, everyone.
Hi everyone. Sorry about that.
This is what happens. This is what happens. It's just a...
What are we doing today?
Oh man, it's all about the woods.
All about the
We've
woods.
got this wonderful selection of music, Tonewoods.
Music wood's a great
Music woods,
expression,
yeah.
I think. I mean, Tonewoods great as well.
Because they are they're so musical, right? You pick them up, you tap them, you get this resonant note, and they're all so different.
So we just brought loads of Tonewoods. We've got some pieces here which are, everything's book matched, so we'll explain that and what that is. You know, these are obviously not jointed. These ones are jointed, so they're already a top. And we can talk about that process as well. But I think when we were talking, we just kind of came up with that expression from tree to tone. And like, to me, there's a few things that give a guitar its voice. The most prominent or dominant things, the tree and how it grows, and hardwood and softwood obviously, is the bracing, the shape of the guitar is hugely impactful, and the player.
Yeah.
That's it. And everything else in between is subjective, is personal preference. But I think when you look at wood and tone wood and where that comes from, and understanding like how a tree works, and it does kind of impact what we're making, you know. And I think that's really important to kind of remember as we're talking about guitars, that they come from these amazing things. Like trees are like this, that every one is their own ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's like a machine, it's mechanical, and it works and feeds itself in wonderful ways. And you know, the molecular difference or the cellular difference of hardwoods and softwoods and how they grow, and like deciduous trees and coniferous trees and all that sort of stuff.
Because of course spruce is a coniferous tree, right?
Yeah. So it's a conifer. You know, the main thing about conifers is they don't shed their leaves. And they don't have the leaves, really have the needles.
They have needles.
You know, so
and cones, right?
Cones, correct. And they have male and female cones, and they, you know, they don't need to shed. The reason why a tree gets rid of, or a deciduous tree gets rid of its leaves in the autumn time, it's like a survival technique. It's like there's not enough light, there's not enough. It can't bring in enough energy to keep that tree healthy through the winter. So it's like, I'm going to get rid of my trees, I'm going to go to sleep for a few months.
Yeah.
I'm going to survive, I'm going to stop growing, and then until spring comes around, and then I'm going to start growing again. Where a conifer doesn't do that. You know, it's a softwood tree, and hardwoods and softwoods behave differently.
So the kind of spruce that we're using for these kind of guitars, how long would that take in general? I mean,
compared to hardwood?
Yeah, I mean, there must be a difference, yeah?
Without a doubt. So the density in hardwood, obviously, is a slower growing tree. So spruce, depending where it is, and there's all sorts of things happen with spruce. They design spruce to be, you know, can grow quicker, and depends where it is. You know.
So they can kind of genetically modify it in a sense?
They can. We're growing spruce in Scotland. I read the other day that they're trying to grow quite quickly, but it's not as strong as, say, Canadian or Alaskan spruce, and they're trying to change that. I think something like 70 or 80% of all the wood used in the world for construction or whatever else is softwood. So hardwood is more rare. I would think spruce, depending on where it is, what it's grown for, anything from like 15 to 30, maybe 35 years. There's not a lot of massive trees left, like, you know, those giant
Picture
redwoods and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You're probably only going to get trees like that these days in national parks, to be honest, where it's illegal to cut them down. All the rest, all of the rest of softwood is harvested. And then hardwood trees, depending what it is, you know, East Indian rosewood, I would think around about 60 to 70 years plus. Then ebony, I don't have much experience with ebony, but I guess it could be 80, 90. I mean, it's just, you know, it's so dense. So that structure of that hardwood, imagine how heavy those trees are when they, you know, when they get to 30, 40 meters plus. That's what gives it the structural integrity, while the sapwood feeds and keeps the tree growing. And as time goes by, sapwood turns into hardwood. And the bark protects. It's another layer of protection through whether it's seasons or pests or whatever else.
Bears.
Or bears.
Bears.
Oh, you're allowed to say that. So there's a bit of bear claw on that Sitka top, and it says bear claw. It's like it's I think it's kind of like a genetic sort of, maybe even a fault or something, but it's in the wood. And he said, Tim said, so it hasn't been.
I've always just
Tim
thought it was
said, so it
a piece
hasn't
of
been
wood's just being
scratched by a
scratched by a bear. Here to learn, I said. I'm here to learn.
So he's like, throw the bear a piece of Sitka. Polar bear?
Polar bear.
Grizzly?
Moon bear on the moon spruce.
But anyway, so I think in our journey, let's like look at everything.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe we'll jump in the car and go and see some trees, and we'll get sort of down and dirty about how this stuff grows, because it's really important when it comes to tone. But I think we're going to set up and we're going to go through some hardwoods and softwoods and just listen to them.
Because there's a little special technique of holding it and tapping it to get the...
There is, you got to know how to tap them, and when we go through these, they sound so different. And there's two things going on. There's like a, you know, like a bloom. There's like a real resonance where it's moving air, and then there's also a chime or you know, a note from it as well. And trying to get the best of both of those effects out of that, and listening to how that sounds is.
So would it be fair to deduce from that then that the sort of softer woods would have a higher pitch or a higher tone than the harder woods?
I've never done this before with so many pieces of wood like this. What's just really surprised me, we've got about 3 grades of Sitka, and the difference in Sitka and cedar, and tapping and listening to, you know, the resonance, the bloom and the chime is massively different. And the difference between 2 African mahoganies, like Kaya and Sapele, is hugely different. And until I did this and just sort of played around with these bits of wood, I actually didn't realise what I thought would sound virtually the same actually sound really different. So we'll get to that.
A question that I've been thinking about since you started talking about, because as I said, like, I don't know anything about Tonewoods. I'm here to learn. But sapwood and hardwood, do you use them both in a guitar? Or
you can do, yeah. So you know, when you see it, like, you could see maybe a beautiful piece of cocoa ball or something, and you have that light piece through the middle.
Oh yeah.
Gorgeous, right? So that's where the heartwood's turning into the sapwood, and you get that. So you have to treat it carefully, because the outer part of the tree, the sapwood, is not good for structure.
That's not good. Oh, okay, so that's the bit you don't want to use.
But there are levels of sapwood and hardwood, because it doesn't just go heartwood, sapwood. You know, it gradually gets softer and harder as you move in and out of the tree.
Yeah.
But some of those pieces of rosewood you get where you have that light coloured wood is where it controls some of the inner sapwood. It's beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous to look at. And it's fine as long as it's dried properly in season. But the outer stuff, which is very moist, be very difficult to dry. It's full of sugars. And the thing, I'm not 100% sure about this. I'm sure somebody will tell me. But it's something, again, how genius a tree is. When it takes on water vapor, you know, like, why does a tree turn that into sugar, into sap? And I believe it's because in cold environments, the water would freeze, and the sap has a lower freezing point. So the trees turned it into that, so it keeps itself hydrated and functioning, because it has the sap, which doesn't as easily freeze as, say, water does. Somebody might have to correct me on that, but I believe that's the reason, which, when you think about it, you've got this whole ecosystem inside the tree, this was kind of mechanical thing, feeding nutrients and sap and moisture to keep it going between the end of the leaf and the end of the root. And then you've got all these mechanisms for survival that it's developed over time, such as shedding its leaves or turning water vapor into sugars. We'll have to dig into that.
We'll have to dig into that. That is brilliant.
So we'll set up and we'll do some...
We'll do that.
Tap in, and then we'll probably also do some descriptions around how different trees work and live. And I think it's all relevant. And hopefully relevant by the time we get to the end of this little journey as to why you even like hardwood guitars or
exactly. What is it about the inherent nature of that piece of wood that resonates? Excuse the pun, with you. Yeah.
And we'll find some bears on the way, Tim. We'll throw them a piece of wood and we'll get some claws.
Premium bear claw spruce tops.
Wow, I love it.
See you guys.
Thanks guys.
Tuning.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Okay, got a nice piece of Sapele here from Africa. So when you're tap testing, there's always usually a sweet spot, and it's trying to find that to get that full sort of bloom of resonance and the chime there's sort of two sounds that I hear anyway, or what you tend to feel one and hear the other. There it is. So when you hear that, it's like a sound wave response, and there's a chime within that. This is Kaya, which is our African mahogany. Different to the Sapele. Walnut, gorgeous walnut, black walnut. Listen to that. Amazing. The king of all kings. Well, queen maybe. East Indian rosewood. So there you've got that energy. You can almost hear the sound waves, and then there's that chime, which results to me in my ear like bass and chimey sort of ring. Boom, boom. Rosewood. We're going to do several sets of Sitka. This is a low grade Sitka, what we would call a B. And let's just see what the difference, if we can audibly hear the difference between different grades of Sitka. Quite nice actually. A grade. So most of our guitars are made of this wood. Artist series. Even the top. Really nice. Double A Sitka. Maybe even a bit more. There's that ring and that chime. Really lovely. Adirondack, which I always believe is a bit stiffer than Sitka. Higher end wood, it's more expensive. But let's see what it sounds like not on a guitar. There you go. Very different. Nice. Feels responsive. I have a feeling this will record really well. It's cedar. Look at that. So this is like, for a top, nearly the opposite end to Adirondack cedar, which is a lot softer. Going from cedar to Kaya mahogany. So it's a narrower frequency, I would have think what D is capturing in there. But the sound waves are very strong. It's like that fundamental, I guess. Kaya.